the Teviot Valley Community Board meeting, September 2023. I'll just call for the apologies. Mark Jessup, Tim Cadogan, and so we've got sorry?
Apologies, no.
Oh, sorry. No, I'll move that those apologies be accepted. Have a second, please. Okay, so we've got a fairly full agenda today. And in the public forum, we've got Mr. Ray speaking to us, and we have also got Mr. Dance, and we will be joined by Zoom, by Teams rather, by Tracy Richmond. And so in our public forum meetings, following our standard orders, we will hear from Mr. Ray. He has 5 minutes to talk to us about the subject, and following that, I will decide at the end of that how we go forth from there in terms of responding to questions. It may be that we need to, as a board, to discuss the topics or queries that come from Mr. Ray, and so we'll make that decision at the time. All right, Ray.
Okay, thank you, Norman, for the time to speak. I hope you don't mind my sit. I'm not going to.
You can sit at the table if you wish.
I feel very comfortable here. So, no disrespect, my understanding. And I came here in response to some letters that have been circulating around the area by one of your members, by Jill. And I'm sort of in support of some of the things that are in them. And one of them is that I think it's good that we're actually being informed of some of the things that go on, whether they be right, wrong, or otherwise. And so, one of the things I saw in her pamphlet is the rates, our rates all going to Alexandra. And there's, I think, our community board, I feel, needs some more finances to run little projects in our community. There's little things. All our rates just seem to go to Alex and Fort Hogan come down here and they're the smallest of jobs, and it's probably costs a fortune. We could have someone here, person here doing that work, and I've been here before about this a few years ago, before your time, on talking about get some money spent in this town with people jobs in this town, just small jobs. We used to have it with we had a town clerk and a handyman around. I think you probably remember, Doug will remember. And the little jobs all got done, and they probably cost way more than what does getting a contractor. And basically, that's my biggest of my whole speech, really. I don't speak very well in front of people. So that's where it's at. I've got another item as well, and it's in this rates assessment thing. It's quite good reading at times, knowing where your rates are going, but I see we have a method in some of this. These things are underlined. Come on. So we have award service rate, and it goes on for our parks and cemeteries and the real duties and tourism. So we pay something into tourism as well. So then we've got economic development rate, and this is for fund of council regional identity and tourism. Tourism gets another whack at another funding. So we got promotions as well. So we go on to the promote Central Otago in this council's regional identity, and tourism gets another whack out of it. And it's 3 whacks. And then you go down the bottom, and there's one for tourism as well. And I'm thinking, how much money is this tourism getting? But it's almost like double dipping, because I think we have a department of government that's after tourism as well. And if tourism was so much of an earner, why should we come out of rates?
That's like a reasonable question for clarification.
And the other, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but you have core industries you look after the water. I don't know where tourism comes into a core business stream. I have no idea. If some people want to be in tourism, go and run a tourism department of your own. I don't see why all the ratepayers and the farmers and everybody has to subsidise something to do with tourism.
I mean, I can't answer that for you right now. What I would suggest we do is formulate an answer for you as a group, and we can discuss this as a group, but not right here and now, unfortunately. And get advice from council.
I'd like to know what sort of monies we're looking at paying for this tourism.
Yeah, and where it's going. We can communicate that back to you.
Yeah. How it benefits.
Yeah, I'm sure there are more people in the community who'd like to know that too.
It probably benefits a few of the businesses in town, but small people through. But most of it goes for farmers and orchards. I don't think tourists come and see farms and orchards much. They might do. But
yeah. Well, that's about how I think we can respond is
there's
a considered and informed response rather than an open discussion. Yeah.
But it's definitely not running full business, as far as I can see. Never used to.
And we may be able to justify that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
So, the next speaker, do we talk?
We've got Doug here.
Doug
Yeah.
here. Okay, so Doug's obviously well aware of what the conditions around grant applications and so forth are.
My go.
Yeah.
Step right up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's quite a privilege to be able to be here to speak to an application, in support of an application for the Roxburgh Pioneer Energy Brass Band. It's a contestable fund. I understand that now, and our brass band has been going since 1882. So we're 141 years old, and I've probably been playing for 65 years of those. I'm an old tuba. So my lungs are just about getting past now. But at any rate, the band is an unusual thing, the band, because we're the only one probably in the South Island that still exists in the country area. And we exist because of determination. We exist because of the fact is we do apply for funds to help run our band. And we do have our buildings, but we like to receive funding from the community if we can, because it used to belong to the Roxburgh Borough Council years ago, and they used to give us some support. So we now apply for the contestable sum. It helps to pay for the rates and insurance. You probably don't understand, but music costs a hell of a lot of money. If you want to buy a new set of books for playing hymns, carols, or whatever it is, it'll cost you $600 for a set of books for the band, just for that one night alone. We have members from Wanaka, Cromwell, Omakau, and Galloway, and of course Roxburgh, and that's where we supply our members from. We are virtually Central Otago band, if you like. We show the flag at Anzac Days in many areas in Central Otago, and we play out in Wanaka and Cromwell, etc., on demand. Generally, we're playing at the Boston Festival again this coming or next weekend. And so, we're quite a busy little band, and we try and keep together. Our numbers are dwindling. So I'm just here to support the contestable funding for our band, because I think it's quite an important part to stay alive as long as we possibly can, because it's a dying sort of a race, if you like, brass band playing, but we do have a fall. Yes.
Okay.
I would also like to, but I'll take questions, but I'd also like to thank Sally Wyman for her input onto another issue that I had, and I'd like to mention this publicly. Thank you very much for your assistance in helping overcome a little bit of bureaucracy with our water pipes at the St John Ambulance building, because we were told that our application would take 20 working days to get a response, and thanks Sally for stepping in, and I got one the next day, and thanks very much for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So has anyone got any questions for Doug about the band?
We're open for players. Anybody wants to get to play? It is free, it's free of charge. We are sponsored actually incidentally by Pioneer Energy. We're Oxford Pioneer Energy brass band, and they do support us, and they have been supporting us for many years. We've had the Teviot Electric Power Board, which we are, in fact, the Teviot Electric Power Board was responsible for the Central Valley District big trust fund we have, and we're very pleased to say that we've hopefully got to play at the centenary of raising the first pole, which is coming up next March, which the band played at 100 years ago.
So I take my hat off to the fact that you guys have been in existence for 141 years.
Pretty good.
That was so cool. I mean, there's not many towns. I grew up in a town that had a band with a long history in Teviot, brass band, but they went around 141 years ago. Well, for me, I don't have any further questions. So thanks, Doug, for your presentation and your update.
Thank you.
We've got Tracy on the agenda, but not online.
So the next speaker is Tracy Richmond.
She's joining us on Teams, but she's not online at the moment.
Okay. Maybe we can,
Is she there still? Or shall we do a recording?
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just do the forming for business.
Oh, that was the part.
I don't mind continuing through the agenda and if we get hold of it, we can slot her in. Is that right?
Yeah. She's saying she's online, but it's not showing at the moment. So we just carry on.
Yeah.
Go back to her.
Are you in communication with the?
Yeah, she's just emailed to say.
Okay, confirmation of the minutes is the next on the agenda, so I assume we've all read them.
Yep.
Sally?
Yep.
Russell?
Yep.
Jill?
Yeah.
Chloe? By proposing that we move that they be accepted as a true and accurate record of the last meeting.
I'll move that. Yeah. And I'll see.
Thank you.
Sorry, just go with it. Yeah, thank you. Would you,
Okay.
if you're happy with it, carry on and with me be later.
Yeah. So did you get the that we accept the minutes?
Confirmation of minutes, yeah.
Yeah, Sally and Jill.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So declarations of interest, just remind you that if you've got any I guess outside interest in any of the papers that we've got on the table today, one of which I have is on the treasurer of the Entertainment Centre Committee. So I will have to step out of that conversation when we'll come to that discussion as item 23.53. And in that process, I believe we need to elect another chair, because our deputy chair's away.
Had to be
You can do
so-
that at that time.
Can we? Okay, right. So I just formally registered my conflict of interest there. Anyone else got any conflicts of interest? Okay. We don't need to move the motion for that, do we? No. Okay, so item 23.5.2, we're getting an update on the battery project from John Gilbar.
Yeah, and we've got John online here.
And we've got a couple of the UB team in the room too, so that's all
Okay,
right.
Yes, apologies on behalf of John. His flight got turned around in Dunedin. My flight landed, but his got 2 minutes later due to the wind. So myself and Joanne are here, and then Susan and John are beaming in from Wellington.
And yeah, the purpose of this is really just to provide an update in the public session of I guess where the team are at and what the work program looks like going forward. Conscious there are going to be changes in your team as well, so it'd be useful just to introduce some of the new members of that.
That's right.
And then we'll have time for some questions at the end.
Mhm.
And also noting that with this update, we invited other members of council as well, so they might be joining online, which might make it easiest for
all right.
questions at the end.
Right.
Okay,
Good
good.
job. That's
Sorry.
Sorry, John, we're just getting you on the screen. We'll let you know when you're ready.
Yeah.
Right, we are now ready for you, John.
Great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to the board, and thank you very much for allowing us here. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for including us in the agenda. I'm John Dorbar, Program Director for New Zealand for NZ Battery. I'm on week 3 of the role, but I have experience with not projects of this size, but complicated projects, complex projects. Again, I apologise for not being at the meeting. I flew around Dunedin 3 times this morning and then headed back to Wellington because of the weather. And I would have much preferred to be at the meeting. Just to give you an idea about the presentation, we're going to take turns with the presentation, and in that way the team can introduce themselves to you as well while we do that. So this presentation focuses on Lake Onslow, but the NZ Battery project is looking much wider than the Lake Onslow project. The key issue that we're trying to resolve is the dry year problem, and Lake Onslow is one option for addressing that. But it is a major potential project in your area, so we thought it's important to give you an update. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Kate, please.
Can you move to the next slide, John? Very different.
There's a challenge.
Right. So my name is Kate Becker. I've met some of you. I've been involved in the New Zealand Battery project, but specifically the Onslow project for a couple of years now. So have been around in the phase 1 of the works. So this slide, I'm probably assuming most of you have got a fair idea about the project, but I thought I'd just do a quick recap on the phase 1 works. A lot of this information that I'm going to talk about now, we presented to the community in October last year. So we provided all the baseline data and the information that we've gathered to date. So just a really quick recap. At the end of 2001, we got TRM on board to help with the feasibility stage of the project, and that was a consortium of Mott MacDonald, GHD and Botham School. So their main job was to pull together the feasibility report that fed into the cabinet decision at the beginning of this year. So as part of their work, they looked at the engineering side of the project. You know, is this a feasible engineering project? What would the infrastructure look like? Where would we put the infrastructure? And then a big part of that was the geotech investigations that we did all through last winter. So that geotech work was on private property and on public property as well. And it was test pits, boreholes, and looking at geophysics as well. And that sort of fed into the engineering to look at costs and risks associated with the project. And then we did a lot of work last year on, you know, looking at the Lake Onslow area and what's already up there. So, you know, looking at birds and fish and indigenous vegetation, the recreational values, landscape values, and all that sort of stuff. And then we also did a phase 1 scoping social impact assessment. So started to look at, you know, the makeup of the community, the workforce that we'd need to bring in, and some of the social issues that could, you know, arise out of the project. And so all of that fed into the feasibility report. And then at the same time, we also had Transpower, which were looking at transmission implications. You know, what would we need to upgrade if Lake Onslow was to go ahead and to get the power north. So next slide. Thank you on through this one, Susan.
Yep, thanks, Kate, and hi everybody. So my name's Susan Hall. I've been involved with the project since about April last year. I haven't had the opportunity to meet you before. I have been down to Roxburgh a couple of times, but nice to meet you all. My role is as a policy director in the Energy and Resource Markets branch, and I'll just run you through the next few slides. So this slide here, as it says, it sets out the key milestones on the project. What we've been doing, as you'll be aware, through phase 1, which essentially took us to February this year in the end, was a feasibility study. So that's covering off the work that Kate just talked about in terms of Onslow, but also looking at a range of other technologies and looking for other potential hydro sites and options in New Zealand. So the feasibility study culminated in the development of an indicative business case, which was presented to Cabinet in February this year. So along that blue line at the bottom, that's the first little circle really, is the February report back that we did. I'll talk a little bit more about what that said in a further slide. Next phase, which we're into now, is basically we've been doing a bit more work to try and narrow our options. And then we'll be kicking off a detailed business case, and that work is essentially kicking off now. One of the things that we're very aware of in the project, and you will be very aware of, is that there is a little bit of uncertainty with the upcoming election as to what the shape of the project will be in the future. And so, you know, timing of these next steps and the scale of them, you know, will be slightly dependent on the outcome of that, you know, the election and what an incoming government wants us to focus on. But broadly, if the project's going ahead, the next phase will be to complete a detailed business case, which will identify the preferred option for addressing the dry year problem. And once we've done that and sort of got a bit more work underway around how that option will be delivered, we'd be moving on to doing further work to head towards a final investment decision. These next 2 phases of work will be likely to take around 3 to 4 years in total. Following that, once and if a final investment decision is made, we'd be moving on to basically implementation. And on this slide, as you'll see, it says construction and operation. Obviously, if Lake Onslow was the preferred option, then there certainly would be construction, and then getting the pumped hydro scheme up and working. But if one of the other options that we're looking into is selected, that implementation phase might look quite different. So just to recap what the indicative business case found, and the the indicative business case is available on our website if you haven't looked at it already, and it goes into quite a lot of detail about the nature of the dry year problem, the work we've done to date, and the range of options. And so, you know, the key findings from that indicative business case, particularly relating to Lake Onslow, were that it is technically feasible. So that work that Kate described that we've done over the previous few years has basically not thrown up any significant red flags in terms of technical feasibility. And it could, a Lake Onslow option could provide very large generating capacity. Modelling so far suggests that it could have a range of positive energy system impacts, and actually this is true for any battery option that we're looking at. So basically any if it's not Lake Onslow that's taken forward, the battery options we've considered would, we think, have positive energy system impacts. And what I mean by that is that the work we've done suggests that they can smooth the volatility of electricity prices in the future, have the effect of having downward pressure on wholesale electricity prices, but also could assist with investment decisions around wind and solar, because you have a very large purchaser of electricity who could help you firm that more intermittent form of generation, which of course doesn't generate when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining. But the indicative business case also, of course, recognised that Lake Onslow would be a very costly option for New Zealand, costing in the region of $16 billion based on the work we've done to date. And there would be significant local environmental, social and cultural impacts of building a pumped hydro scheme up at Lake Onslow. And as I say, the indicative business case goes into quite a bit of detail about those. Yeah. Do you have any questions at that point?
Have you thought about evaporation? You've got a
Yes.
huge amount of water over. You have?
Yep.
Haven't seen
Yeah, no,
so
some work. Yes, NIWA, some of the work that Kate referred to that NIWA did looked at evaporation, and you know, it is known that evaporation with such a large body of water could be an issue, but it's in the margins essentially from the work that NIWA has done. It's not an impediment that has a significant impact on the benefits of the option.
So what work have you guys
sorry.
done? Sorry, what work have you guys done based on the influence on climate in this valley?
We procured a report by Dr. Jen Purdy, who's a academic focusing on climate change impacts. The work that she's done, and this is a piece of work that we will also be making available on our website in the relatively near future, says that climate change is likely to have a slightly beneficial impact on the dry year problem. And the reason for that is that it's anticipated that more precipitation is likely to fall as rain rather than snow. So the scale of the dry year may, over the long term, reduce slightly. However, that impact is not significant enough to have, to reduce the scale of the problem enough that an investment may not be needed.
And just to add to that, it's also something that we've talked to NIWA about. If we were to go into phase 2, about a few people brought up at the community day last year about, does a bigger lake up there change the local climate? So that's something that we've flagged with NIWA that we would need to look at going forward.
As a first row, it does concern me.
Yeah, and it came up a lot at the community day. We had that and dust.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are two things that we've sort of added to NIWA's remit going forward.
And timelines, the construction, how long do you think that's going to take?
The timeline in the indicative business case was broadly, correct me Kate if I'm wrong, around 10 years from final investment decision through to full operation of Lake Onslow.
Yeah,
Right.
7 to 10 years. Yeah.
So you're talking 2026 or 27 for your business case outcome to be confirmed?
Yep, so we're talking
4 years from now.
Yeah.
So you're talking 2036, 2036, 2037 before we see the benefit of it.
Yep, that's the
Sorry?
Where would the workers be based? I mean, are they looking at building a working hub here, or
Dunno.
are they coming from Middlemarch, or?
Do you want me to answer that, Susan?
yeah. Sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble hearing the questions. So
Just around worker accommodation. So that's something that we've looked at, I guess in the feasibility study, we touched on it. And I think the figures were, correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, there would need to be a workforce of about 500 workers. And there would need to be obviously some sort of accommodation built to support those workers. And the social impacts of something like that would be looked at through the social impact assessment in phase 2, because that's a big influx of people to a small town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
one of the things, I mean, a couple of points is that obviously there's a lot of uncertainty still just in terms of decision making on the project and whether work at Lake Onslow will go ahead. But definitely one of the things we're very mindful of is the potential impact on the local community, but also the potential impact of a sort of, influx of people and then people leaving after. And that's something that I know will be a real focus should Lake Onslow go ahead, be an absolute, core focus of the project.
If you spent 16 billion on solar and wind power, do you not think that it would be more beneficial? And further, sending the power north will lose probably what, 20%, and that's where it's going to go. It's going to go north. So those things seem to me to actually can the whole project. I can't see how it's feasible.
The challenge with wind and solar is that intermittency. So one of the issues with the dry year problem is its scale. It is an extremely deep and profound problem. So what it can mean is that up to 10% of New Zealand's annual electricity demand isn't able to be serviced for a period of weeks to months. And so solar and wind can plug some of that gap, but the intermittent factor of solar, but also the amount of wind and solar that you would have to build to fill a gap of that size is very, very significant. So we often get asked that question. It's a very common question, but because of the actual nature and depth of the dry year problem, you really need, what you need to be able to do is store certain energy that isn't intermittent at a very great scale for a long period of time. And wind and solar, unless you build, as I say, a very great amount of it that oftentimes wouldn't be used. It would be an overbuild situation where you wouldn't use it. It's not a better option to our mind.
And you're right, the transmission leakage could be up to 10%, going from down south up to the top of the state of Auckland, but that's built into all of the calculations as well.
I might just carry on. I'm going to jump across to the next slide and then I'll come back to that one just in terms of the project update. So I mentioned that we took the indicative business case to Cabinet in February, and where we'd got to with that indicative business case is we were hoping to identify a preferred option through that process, but what we found actually is that there wasn't a lot of difference in terms of benefits versus impacts of what we refer to as the portfolio option, which is using a more diverse sort of grouping of different technologies, which could be spread across the country, just to your transmission point that you made before, and the Lake Onslow option. So what Cabinet agreed is that we should do some more work to see if we could narrow the options that we had on the table before moving to the detailed business case phase. So they agreed that we would continue our work with Lake Onslow, do more work to understand this multi-technology portfolio option, but also to that transmission point, you may be aware that we had identified a potential pumped hydro option at Upper Mofongo in the central North Island. And so we had agreement to look further at that option, provided we had the agreement from local iwi leaders to do that work. So that was the February Cabinet decision. Since then, we've been basically advancing work on those things. So we've been preparing and planning for what work we'd need to do with Lake Onslow for a detailed business case, continuing to investigate those portfolio options. And so the three key technologies we've been looking at are hydrogen, biomass and geothermal generation used in a flexible manner. So continuing to understand those a bit to see actually if there is still something in the portfolio option or whether it could be taken off the table. And then also continuing discussions with iwi. The other piece of work we've been doing is to prepare a lot of the information that we've gathered over time, and we're gradually getting that up on our website so that it's available for people to look at. And also we've had an environmental hui that Kate went along to, and maybe Joanne too, I'm not sure if you were there, with the Tako, Hokanui and Puketeraki, the local runaka. So that's been the key focus of our work to date. And just to go back to the previous slide, where this took us was to another cabinet report back in July. And the findings from that work between February and July were essentially that actually the portfolio option is still on the table. However, we don't think that a hydrogen option is something that Crown should be investing in as a dry year solution. Basically, hydrogen as a technology, the sort of arrival of that technology at the scale we would need is some time off, but also that option would depend on storing the hydrogen as ammonia, and a lot of the fiscal benefits of that option depends on selling that ammonia at great scale, and that market does not exist currently globally at the scale we would need. So that hydrogen aspect has been taken off the table. And the other, the option of Upper Moafonga that I mentioned before, we've also taken that off the table, essentially because you may well be aware that there's quite a difficult history with hydro schemes in that part of the country due to the way they were approached in the past. We are not comfortable with further work going on that option, but also there are potential significant impacts on the New Zealand Defence Force training ground with that option that also, I mean, it's got too many impediments basically, and we've taken it off the table. And then, so this is my final slide, which is talking about what we're going to focus on now in the next phases. So I think I'll start at the bottom. Joanne will talk shortly about exactly what we plan to be doing on Lake Onslow pending election outcome, and in the next phases. On the portfolio option, we're going to be advancing our work on that, and the key part of that and a key benefit of the portfolio option is that rather than the Crown building a massive pumped hydro scheme, it might allow us to get the market to provide more elements of the dry year solution. So one of the things we're going to be doing is going to the market to engage with them about whether there are demand response options, or there are hydrogen solutions, smaller scale hydrogen solutions that the market might deliver that we could pull together in a sort of grab bag or portfolio of responses. And then just quickly, the other key part of our next work is to make sure that we are checking that the Crown should make any investment like this. And so we're wanting to compare it to a really solid base case, which is basically if we keep our reliance on fossil fuels, what would be the cost of that? Is relying and keeping our reliance on fossil fuels actually a better option for New Zealand than going to a renewable dry year solution? So a key piece of work we're going to be doing is really trying to figure out what the future of gas supply looks like in New Zealand. You'll be aware that our gas sector is declining, so we really want to understand how secure our future gas supply is out to 2040, 2050 and into the future, and whether there would in fact be costs in that alternative instead. I'll pass over to you now, Jo. Oh, I've gone one too far, sorry. There we go.
Okay. And also, my name is Joanne Dowd. I'm a principal policy advisor with the battery team. I joined the team in June, and I took over from Carl Woodrow. So some of you may have met Carl previously. So what I am looking at the moment is just the plan, the work that we will need to do to take the Onslow project or option forward. And it's basically in a programming stage at the moment, but what we're looking at is a kind of two-stage approach. So one is kind of short term, looking at how we can fill some of the information gaps that we have from the phase one works. And that's really being driven, I suppose, by what's seasonally, what's required on a seasonal basis. So if there's surveys that need to happen, say in January, February, then they're the things that we're trying to take on board. I can't read that slide at all from the distance. Excuse me, my packet lens.
You are not really okay.
Sarah?
What's good?
Can see the slide.
I think the plugging the walls coming out.
Apologies. But yes, some of the, I'll keep trying to talk about what I remember. So again, just for short term, some of the things will be seasonal, and we need to get a good record of the last, say, 3 years. So we can do some of the work around mitigation and offsetting. You need a good understanding of, say, if there was translocations of fish. You need a really good body of work in place. So again, we're looking at programming things for that in the short term. And longer to medium term is again just looking at that wider scale of impacts which would be required for the project if it was to proceed, so that that information can support resource consent applications or other applications for consenting. So that's basically where we are at the moment. So again, very much in the planning stage.
Okay.
That is all that water, if we get a massive quake through the Southern Alps, which is expected, you know, any time from now to the next 500 years, whatever, but you've got this huge body of water sitting up there.
So that is something that we will take into consideration. The design of the process and the project will have consideration of those types of hazards, and the geotechnical investigations, that's built into their brief, so that again it's actually designed to address those sorts of issues. And that may be avoidance of their areas. So at the moment they're looking at potential alignment of different options, and if one is significantly impacted, say, by a hazard, then it would discount that option. But yeah, it's certainly a consideration.
Yeah, and that question has been asked a lot, and I've actually got a one-page response from the engineers about how we design to account for earthquakes.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to send that through if it would be of interest to anyone.
All right, I have no questions. Has anyone else got any questions, Sarah?
No, because I've been communicating with Kate.
Russell?
I guess from a stakeholder sort of engagement perspective, you know, whatever happens in October and November, you'll hear from us, from the team, to give a bit of a project update of what will happen next, whatever happens.
Yeah.
They have said that, yeah.
So thank you again, Mr. Chair, and to the board. Thank you for having us. If there aren't any more questions, we'll leave you to your business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you.
So, you know, the should last minute from my last minute.
Well, I guess it's such a big subject.
Yeah, there's a lot online now. We've been progressively uploading all our phase one reports to the New Zealand Battery website. So there's quite a big body of information up there.
Yeah.
And we're continuing to add stuff as we review it, and we obviously need to do some redacting of commercially sensitive information. So it's getting up there slowly. So if you did want to delve into the real details of the project, there's pages and pages of information online. Yeah,
And I guess when you make a decision, or when
government. Yeah,
make their decision for them,
yeah,
that'll be the time that people will actually start
Yeah.
logging their real interest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
starting to take the opportunity to read more about it and so
Yeah.
forth.
It's 16 million of taxpayers' money.
correct.
Yeah. We can only at this stage take the information, and consider your I guess recommendations as to how we sit within the community
Yeah,
with as far as that goes.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's going to be interesting within the community.
Well, it's going to be a busy year if it all comes together.
I mean, there seems like there's a lot of interest, you know, the community day in October, we had over 100 people through the door, so people are keen to learn about the project. Yeah.
Well, once the decision's made, I think that will probably increase dramatically.
Yeah.
So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Come along.
Okay, perhaps you can send me the slides and then I can circulate them to members.
Yeah, no problem.
It's not very legible today.
Thank you.
I've got Timothy on the phone.
Go ahead.
That's public.
Yeah. I'll just return to the public forum so we can take Tracy's presentation. It wasn't available before.
Here are Tracy, it's Sarah. We're ready for you. I'm just going to put the phone on the table and put you up next. Hopefully we can all hear you nice and loud and clear. Thanks very much.
Hi, Tracy.
Technology didn't work today, but I will present to you via my phone and hopefully you can all hear me loud and clear.
Yeah.
I can see you guys, so I know whether, give me the thumbs up or thumbs down if you can't hear me.
Right.
This afternoon I'm presenting on behalf of the Dunstan Kahui Ako, which is our community of learning in our local area. It involves 8 local primary schools and a high school and early childhoods as well. And next month we are organising and hosting an arts festival in Alexandra, which will involve a 2-week art exhibition. Awesome, thank you for the thumb. And a performing arts evening and some workshops for students. And we're asking for some funding from the community boards to assist our small rural schools to get to the art exhibition and view their work and see the other schools' work on display. And so the Maniatoto board have funded St John's School to get to the art exhibition, and this week the Vincent board have given us some funding for Paulburn and Omakau School, and today the funding that I'm asking for is for the Millers Flat School. So we're seeking $273.76 from you guys to assist to get their pupils to the exhibition. And I'll leave it at that, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Okay.
Is that bus hire?
Sorry?
Is that bus hire to get transport?
Yes, required to get to Alex and back again.
But I don't have any questions about it. I mean, I guess the benefit to the kids that are going in is very obvious. How many kids are you intending on attending from Millers Flat?
Could you repeat that question?
How many kids are going from Millers Flat?
It'll be the whole school. So at the time of the application, it was 26 students. I believe they might be up to 28 now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You got any questions, Sally?
No, no.
Russell?
None.
Phil?
No.
No, I think we're pretty much across where you're at, and we will be giving that consideration this afternoon.
Thank you very much for your time. Much
Thanks,
appreciated.
Tracy.
Thanks, Rosie. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. So we're sitting now, we're looking to consider the grants, the grant applications that we have in front of us.
And then just hand over to Sally for the commission.
Yeah. So I'll chair the first, Sarah System. It might have been for the first two, and then for the second we'll get some, the third item with the Roxbury Entertainment Centre. Get someone to stand in for me. So what do we need to do? Sorry.
Rebecca wants to talk to her part of the report.
Yep.
Then Nancy might get you to hold off. So
I've got like three Are you good, Norman, for me?
I'm good for you, Rebecca.
Excellent. So thank you. So this round, we've received 2 community grant applications for the first round of the funding. This is, remember, council has a financial year that starts July and goes through the June. And so the next round will be in March for decisions in May. So any money that you don't allocate for this round will be available for the community in their second round. We've received those 2 applications. They total $2,273. And you've got 5,000 to distribute. Doug did a wonderful job of talking to the brass band application, so I've got nothing to add to that. I've recommended that you fund it, that you grant what has been requested in the funding. I did ring the museum just to make sure to see if they were going to apply. They may consider an application for the next round, so they hadn't missed it. It was a deliberate non-apply application, if you like. The third one is the one you've just heard from Tracy. So last year, the Dunstan Kahuiaku came to council. So because it was kids from Teviot, kids from Manitoto, kids from Vincent, the application went to the council to consider as a whole. And it was the introduction of the New Zealand curriculum and the New Zealand history into the curriculum. So it was a new event that we funded, and council agreed to fund as a one-off application to get those kids to that exhibition at Central Stories. They've come back again this year. They've gone to the separate boards, as you've heard Tracy explain, and I'm recommending a decline, but up to you to decide. It's just my recommendation. That's all it is because it could open the gates for other similar applications. There's less about this application that differentiates it to others, school trips to area, really. And so that's my reason for recommending a decline, but that's up to you. As Tracy said, for Vincent, I had recommended a decline to Vincent, but Vincent did. They applied for 3 schools from Vincent. They applied for Clyde, Paulburn, Omakau, and they funded Omakau and Paulburn. So Vincent made that decision, but they said that it was one-off. So yeah, that's all I could answer the question.
Wait.
One last thing. The transportation that the kids from Miller's Flat have, it costs a lot less than the other schools because you've got the local.
Well, all these grants are supposedly a one-off. So there is no sort of differentiation in that respect. And I don't know, in terms of setting precedent, I think we hard pressed to use that as an argument too, not to grant it. So for me, it's more about whether, we are looking to support youth or children's growth and education, as opposed to reasons why not to. Does that make sense?
Yep. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I mean, could something like that, like a one-off trip that's tied in with your school curriculum, sort of be sort of factored into grants? Things so that maybe we can support that little school maybe once a year.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Man.
a case by case. The case by case thing.
And it sounds like the money should also,
It wasn't the community board, it was the community trust.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
right.
It's but for, they're all called community something.
Yeah.
I'm just not on the list at school, so my kids went there.
So as far as that application is concerned,
It does meet the, you can argue, like last year I made, there is an argument that fits the criteria. It's not against the criteria, so it's completely at your discretion whether you fund it or not.
So for that particular application, I don't know, what do you?
I think we should support it because we've only got 2 applications. We've still got money in reserves of about 5,000. And
Russell?
Yeah, support it.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's 4 of us seem to be in support of that. We'll move the motion shortly, but and we go back to the band's application.
I'm in support.
Yeah, I'm in support.
I'm 100% myself.
Yeah, I've got to stop it after 100 years.
Yeah.
No, mention it.
No. You know, he's done it, everything more.
So the purpose for this whole report, and I just need to be careful here whether I'm supposed to pass the motion now.
No. So what I would suggest is now you step aside, let the next part of the paper be read, which is the motions front.
Yeah.
We could take it separate, so we could.
Oh, sorry.
The community grants has one resolution.
Yeah, so we'll make a resolution for the community grant. Move a motion that we accept both the applications for grants from the community grant.
We've got some prepared wording. Just to make it all formal.
Exactly.
Basically, it says that you'll grant $2,000 to the Roxburgh Pioneer Energy Brass Band, and that you allocate $273 and whatever cents to the Dunstan Kahui Arcus Transport, the Millers Flat School, to attend the arts festival.
Thank you. So I move that.
I'll second it.
Right, so I'll step out and.
You got me to take over?
Is it my choice?
Well, it'll be done by vote, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
I vote that you
the
do.
remaining 3, you decide who.
Sorry?
Amongst the remaining 3 who are
Yeah, well, I
here.
vote for Sally to take over because I would never go.
Yeah.
Take Russell.
Yes, Ellie?
So we'll move on to the promotions grant. And we've received an application from the Roxburgh Entertainment Centre for signage in the building.
Do we just want to start?
Can I ask a question?
I think the answer is just.
I think that's, so this application, initially came in as a community grant, and Ellie and Rebecca in the assessment process saw that it was a better fit with the promotions fund, and also that there was no applications in that space, so you had the available funding in that, and that's noted, in the assessment information in your appendix. So the applications for $960 and it's been recommended to be approved. As you'll know, the entertainment centre volunteer led initiative and like to pipe band has been around for a very long time and is the longest continuous running movie theatre in the Southern Hemisphere. The group's looking to increase the awareness and promotion of the cinema and wants signage to do this, and by doing that, being able to allocate any of their other funding towards other projects. Really, all we've got.
Has anyone got any questions?
And what sort of signage is that? Is it something flat along the building, or you may be looking at
It's
putting out?
already been done. It's just the Roxburgh, what does it say, Roxburgh?
Cinema.
There's some examples in the appendix.
The example.
And
Appendix 3's got the quotes for it and the mock-up of the signage.
Be nice to have a canvas, you know, one of those canvas things that they used to have out of those buildings, give you a bit of cover going in. Use it up.
There's also the limit, the outside line around the hall.
Yeah.
That's included in it. Yeah, there we go. Oh, it's not there, but all this stuff is part of it, and then it's just got.
Yeah, I think I saw it in that one. Yeah, it doesn't actually show it on there.
No.
It doesn't actually show it on there.
Place.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
Oh, they don't.
oh, here we go. Can we change it all?
Yeah, there's a. Oh, okay. What page are you on?
32 of the attachments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so is everyone in favour of the grant to the Roxburgh Entertainment Centre for signage for $960?
Yep.
Bill? Yep, I'm in favour as well. So who would like to move that?
I'll move that the board pay that amount to the Roxbury Entertainment Centre, yeah.
And a seconder?
I'll second it.
Right, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Congratulations, Norman.
Thanks, guys. There is this thing, let's do one Sheridan, I see that.
So I just sit there being. Mr. Bailey,
How are you?
welcome.
Thank you.
You're going to talk more trees.
More trees and trees.
You want to take these ones down, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's just an information report for the board. So, the board, this board requested that top of the trees, the stuff from the swimming pool be removed last year, and we had no funding for that. So with the, underspends from last year, we've found some funding, to enable that work to happen. So there's some money from the Middlesbrough Cenotaph repairs and the Roxburgh Wild and Pine Control that weren't used. So we've put that towards this project, and we've taken the balance of the shortfall of 10,000 from the, I guess, the Greater Soil Forestry Reserve account. And the trees are all but down already. So of course, slightly behind us, behind progress. So I looked just before we came to the meeting, I think it's about 3 small ones for him to take out. So what we're proposing, also, it's just for your information, and through the long-term plan, we will put 10,000 into that to put back into the forestry reserve account. So that's not filtered with little away, and you can use that for some projects going forward as support sets in the future. Happy to answer any questions.
just like to say on behalf of the pensioners that live behind those trees, they are very excited. They've been hanging out over the fence all week, and they think they're going to have veggie gardens. Because they'll have some sun in their properties. And the principal at the school's now got a river view.
Yeah.
So they're very, very appreciative of that work.
Yeah, it took some roundabout, but we got there.
Yeah, no, they're very stoked. Yeah.
So what we're proposing here is we have the 21,000 in the LTP program
Yeah.
for year one. So we would take the 21 out, but leave
10
or even whatever the balance is, so that it can go back into progress.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
That's not flicking away and calling
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
It's just probably not the best thing for it. It's good.
Yeah.
Something more constructive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
They just need to receive this. Yeah.
Sorry,
I think you need to receive the.
do we need to receive it? So I move that report be received and, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll move it and I just need a second for
I'll
the
second
motion.
it.
Right, so finances. Welcome.
So take the paper as being read. This is the interim financial report as at 30 June 2023. It's to give you an indication of where the financial year has ended. However, as we progress through our annual report processes and audit, this may be subject to change. But it just gives you an idea of where we've landed. So overall, there's an unfavourable operating variance of $277,000 against the revised budget. You'll notice that the trends have sort of remained in place. So we have a favourable revenue variance of $156,000, with 108 of that being a grant received from federal funding for payment of the Roxburgh pool fencing. Expenditure has an unfavourable variance of $433,000, and this continues to be driven from the grant paid to the Roxburgh community pool for the upgrade. This is sorted out through an internal loan and also a grant, so that is dealt with through the reserves, and that was in the last financial year. So we've also got a capital expenditure favourable variance at the end of the year of $630,000. I'm sure a lot of these projects which haven't been completed will be continued and carried forward into the next financial year, or they will be assessed for the LTP. Are there any questions?
You got any questions, sir?
No.
Russell?
No.
Jill?
No, not at the moment.
I had a question when I read it, but I didn't write it down. But I think it was around where the 108 was coming from. I didn't pick that up.
Yes, the 108 is part of the Better Off funding, as part of the Three Waters reports. So as part of that, the council has decided how to allocate that funding. So the 108 is for a grant to the Roxburgh for the fencing on the outside. So that is shown in the capital expenditure as well.
Yeah.
And so basically the income offsets the expense, and so there's no effect on the community board's reserve balances.
Okay. So the bulk of that loss is basically from the grant, isn't it?
It is, yes.
So it's not really a loss, it's a gain.
Overall, it is, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Take that out of the equation.
Okay, I'm happy with that, thank you. And, I need to receive that yet? Yeah, we haven't finished.
Yep, received and can be moved.
Sorry?
Received. And the recommendation is that the report is received and we just need a mover and a second for that.
So I do recommend that that report be received, and I move that we accept it or receive it. Can I have a seconder, please?
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Oh.
Those against say nay. Carry.
Thanks, Simon.
Right. News report.
We don't have one.
Just because he's on the policy, he gets away with it. Right, so the chair's report, I'll just have to pull mine up. We don't, do we have to formally acknowledge that he's not here? No, he's just already acknowledged. He's already in the policy. Right, so my report for 10 September. Welcome to spring in the Teviot Valley, a time of the year that signals the coming of the new harvest of produce of whatever you may be growing. It's a time of year that the population in the valley seems to awaken and prepare for the influx of supporters, our seasonal workers, our service providers, our tourists, and their extended families. I thought I would reflect on the past 10 months of my time in the chair, and I would have to say that, in my view, we have achieved well in our journey. I see great improvement in the relationships the TV Community Board has with our community. Our responsibilities as elected members extends to all community members, not just ratepayers. Given the cross-section of people we have coming into our valley and as new residents or visitors, it's important that we don't lose sight of the fact that our community is not confined to ratepayers and service providers. We are not a closed community, as some are trying to lead us to believe. The fabric of our community has evolved over time through sensible, rational, and well-considered respect for the well-being of others. Yes, the way that we are administered has changed from valley local to district local, but I would say that this has been to the benefit of our valley. The cycleways are proof of this, as we couldn't have achieved this without the district-wide approach. Unfortunately, much of my time in the last 3 months has been taken up by the unwanted distractions and actions of a minority group attempting to make council ungovernable. This has been a complete waste of my time as an elected member and chairman of the board, and time that would have been far more valuable in contributing to the serving of the Teviot Valley community. My colleagues, bar one, feel the same. There is no place for radical influence or cynicism in our valley. Our future generations will benefit more from maintaining a unified and considered promotion of our values and interests as a whole. This aside, the board has set about communicating the real benefits being brought to the fore by proactive delivery of major projects, the swimming pool being an example. I'm improvements to our waste management, upgrades to our infrastructure, and growing support for the decarbonisation through our focus on green spaces, to name a few of our achievements. As a board, we continue our involvement and attendance to community group meetings, events, representations of our community from our hearts. And lastly, there is no question that we are not supported. So there is no question that we are not supported by CADC. All elected members in our district in that same respect. That's the end of my report. I'd just like to acknowledge the support and the integrity of the organisations that we represent, the ODC and this board. So I move that my report be accepted. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those that say nay, against, carried. Time for the members' reports. Who wants to start?
I can start if you want.
Yeah.
So I'll start with my community board members report, and I'll give you a bit of an update on walking tracks to start with. So I, since the Walkways Committee is no longer a subcommittee of this committee, we've got together and we've put a business plan together so that we can kind of really get a grasp around what our assets are in the valley and what work we need to do going forward. And we can kind of solidify a good plan of attack of what we want to achieve. So we've been working away at that, and we've also put a submission in for into the council trails fund for upgrading the Horseshoe Bend Bridge track so that people would be able to cycle from the Craig Flat Road through the bridge and back. And we've put an application in to get signage replaced there as well because it's illegible. So that's one project we've been working on. I also went for a walk through the Grovers Hill track with Murray Gordon from council and also the new health and safety person at council and James from B Design so that we could finalise the signage that's going up at Grovers Hill. And James, I think, has just got a little bit of tweaking that he needs to do, and then we want to get that signage printed and up so that we can get that track open because essentially all the work's been done now. Josh has put a new track up to Frog Peak for us, so we've got a little zigzag going up, which is great. So that's going to make that a lot more accessible for people. And yeah, so we're hoping that we can get that signage up and get the track open, and we will do a community announcement about it and let people know when we're ready to go, but we don't know the time frame around when the signage is going to be installed. So once we know that, we'll let everyone know about that.
So does it follow the same trail?
Pretty much, yeah, but actually Josh has cut along the top ridge. I don't know if you know, but the track used to go kind of in the middle in the pine trees, and so you didn't have a view. And now it's gone, if you're looking south, the track's gone way closer to the left-hand edge. So as you're walking along, for now anyway, well, there's not a lot of trees there, you get a really amazing view looking down to the river. It's quite spectacular. Yeah.
So would you use where the track used to go? Is it sort of like as a bike, a part of your bike?
So I don't know. So we're not, I'm not part of a biking group, so I don't know what they're planning on doing because I don't think anyone's established a group yet.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know what their plans will be. So that's pretty exciting that we're nearly ready to reopen that, which is really good. And also this week, our walking committee met with Rach from the Hayata Trust to discuss native planting along the riverbank between essentially the bridge and Tweed Street, so sections of it. And I think we're going to concentrate on trying to do some native planting closest to the swimming pool to start with, because that area has been cleared, and it would be a good place to start. Further along the track, there's so much ground cover that it's going to be a real challenge. And what we thought was that we could potentially just do pockets of native planting, because I think it'd be too big a job for us to try and clear all that.
So where's the funding for that coming?
So we've got to go and find the funding. Yeah. So we have to find the funding. So we're not ready to do it. We're just at the stage of scoping out the work and then going to find funding. So Rachel from the trust said that the school could potentially go and they'd do a workshop for school kids up in Clyde at their nursery, so they could do some propagation and they could propagate plants, and ultimately those plants could get planted. So that's a bit of a long-term view, but it's been really fantastic for the kids. And I know that one of the teachers at the school is quite keen on that, and I mentioned that to the principal yesterday and he was keen as well. So there's also like Contact Energy do working days where they come down and do planting in communities and stuff. So there's quite a few options of where we can look for money, but we haven't got to the stage of looking for money because we're just scoping it out, trying to figure out what plants we'd get, and yeah, go from there.
30,000 might not have been too bad.
Yeah, true. But we'll probably,
Community grants.
yeah, true. But we won't be, I don't think we'll be coming here for that. And I've also been liaising with Josh just around the removal of those trees, which are pretty much all done. And I've had quite a few swimming pool meetings, and we have actually been working quite a lot on operational procedures of the pool. So getting all of our operational plans in place for when we open. And it looks like we should get the pool commissioned by the end of October. And we're thinking of having the official opening around the 1st of December. So we need a little bit of time from getting commissioned to opening. And we have to sort out I think the chlorine levels bounce around quite a bit in a new pool to start with. So you don't want to fill the pool, put the chlorine in, and then have people arrive the next day. You need to allow a bit of time. So yeah, I think we're looking at around the 1st of December for an official opening at this stage.
And is it going to involve any events, like are you going to have a party day? Or
Yeah.
And
the 1st of December is a Friday, so we thought that was probably quite a good day to have an official opening, but we haven't got any concrete stuff around that yet, but that's what we're looking at. So that's everything from community board. And from council, we had a meeting last Wednesday, and a couple of things that came up was volumetric charging for water on larger residential lot sections. So at the moment we have a really high uniform annual charge, and we're looking at maybe reviewing how that's charged and looking at a volumetric. So you pay more people are paying more for the water that they're using.
So they're paying for what they're using.
Yeah. So for high users, they'll be paying for what they're using. We also looked at the draft bridge strategy, which is going to be a really big part of the 2024 long-term plan. We've got about $20 million worth of bridge upgrades and replacements that we need to do in the next 10 years. So that is going to be a big piece of work. And we are putting the roading team are putting a submission into Waka Kotahi for funding. They get up to 51% subsidy for funding. So we're putting in a pretty robust application for that. We looked at the electoral system review and agreed that we'd retain the first past the post voting system for the next election. And we also agreed to notify the engagement document for the Teviot Valley Spatial Plan. So I think there's going to be community.
September, October.
Yeah, that's going to happen. And on the 1st of September, I went to a district vision workshop that Rebecca and her team put together. And we were workshopping the past, the present and the future vision for wellbeing in Central Otago, looking to the next 50 years. And that's also going to be a piece of work that's going to be heavily promoted to the community, and then wanting a lot of input from community to where we head for the next 50 years, which was really exciting. And we had a Dunstan High School pupil that attended that workshop, and also one of council's cadets, and they gave a really great young perspective to that workshop.
Cool.
And that's me.
Russell.
Yeah, I'm also a member of the community garden. Well, I've been a member for a long time now, and we've got a new president, Father Pat. I'm not sure of his surname, but it is. Sorry about that. And that woke everyone up. So it's going quite well. We've got about 8 members that don't always come. It's open. It runs 3 2-hour sessions a week, and it's we've got about $1,000 in kitty, and that's used to buy more plants for planting. So if you feel like going there and having a look, it's just behind the medical centre, and it's a very nice garden. Not that I know lots about gardening, but I do whatever I can under instruction from Tom Welsh, is the knowledgeable person, if you know Tom. So that's going well. While I'm talking, I have a particular dislike for the expensive tin furniture in the main street. I think it demeans Roxburgh because it's super modern and Roxburgh is not super modern. I've never seen anyone using it apart from once when I'm regularly in town, because I normally go every morning and have a cup of coffee at 103, outside of which there's several items of this ridiculous tin furniture, which I think cost 80,000. I'm not sure about that, but I think it cost that. I would like it removed. It's an insult. And as the proprietor of the pub said, it's either a cold bum or a hot bum that you get when you sit on it. So as I say, I've seen one child sitting on it once, and she got up a bus and exclaimed and sat on it. Never have I seen anyone else use it. And as I say, I think it is totally out of place in Roxburgh. So has the community board got any power to remove it? Or could it now be removed, or would that cause, I mean, I'm yet to find anybody who likes it. I've talked about this widely with friends and colleagues, and they all hate it. But I mean, it may well be that someone likes it, but certainly.
We can add that to our list. Add that to your list.
Can we put it at swimming pool?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a discussion we can have later. Not as part of your time as delivering your members' report.
Ah, right, well.
But we can certainly explore that, Russell.
Good. Otherwise, somebody might one day sort of drive into various bits of it and flatten it. Which would be one solution to it.
Thank you.
No, I haven't got anything else to report.
Good. Phil?
No, I've got nothing. Both my meetings, first time my husband was sick, so I didn't deal with the house. And the second time it was me. So I've kept a low profile.
Okay. Right, move that those members' reports be received. Can I have a seconder, please? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. Carried. Governance report. Is there anything in the governance report that people want to discuss? Of the ordinary.
Nothing really.
Actually, good. A question for you. You know, the planting's being done at Rovers Hill. Do you know when the native planting will be
I
done?
think around late September, yeah.
Oh, so, right, okay. Okay, great.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak to that, please? Am I allowed to have a view?
Go on then, Doug. You got,
I'm not a rogue. I'm an absolute supporter of it. And I've spoken to my niece, which I presume you know is Mary Gordon, and your river walk one up behind the swim bars. I would like to, and I mentioned to Murray about that, and I think it's a brilliant idea, and I believe that there's some fantastic trees available that would encourage the bellbirds, the tuies and the wood pigeons, because I know of only 4 in this district here in Roxburgh of the southern oak tree, which has been flowering full out since the end of May. It's still flowering now, and we've had wood pigeons allowed. So I live in Melrose Street. I've had 2 wood pigeons and bellbirds there all the time. And I do believe there's an access to about 100 of those southern copaic trees, which would be a great thing for this valley, because they feed such a hell of a long time, 2.5 months of flowering, and they're not a big tree.
That's what we were talking about yesterday, was the southern copai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have plenty of seeds.
And we actually talked about that, getting the seeds for the children would get the seeds and then propagate. But where did we get, where would the trees be? Where would the trees, the 100 trees, where?
It's at a nursery down at, whatever the name of the common one is, the outside, we said, Superbird one, we're attacking up to. No, it wasn't quite brown. They used to make super. One. Yeah. Because I spoke with another owner of Southern Cope, he said, I'm pretty sure I can get hands immediately on 100. But there's a but to that, they will cost. Whereas the seeds that I have were free, and I'm a fantastic believer in that, because 3 lots of native birds down there or farms would be a great nucleus for the valley.
And it's also, I think we brought that up as part of the district vision, is that the copai used to be here, so yeah.
alrighty. Thank you, Doug.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think this Rochester Cemetery is still on that governance list.
Oh, okay.
Been on the way down, it's been on the go for a long time.
Oh, no, I don't think it's there.
Anyway.
Oh, yes, it is, it is.
Project stock.
Yeah.
Working through
the
titles and the encroachment areas, and council started work on early stages of digitising the all the burials there, so they can go online, you can compute them online. So I think a drone was down there flying or mapping it the other day, so we're starting on that process. That should be finished by early next year with all the blocks. I think that's 16 or 1700 blocks there on memory. So quite a big job to check the right people in the right place.
all right.
I do have one other, sorry, on here is the walkways fund. We're doing up the river track, and it says here the issue is waiting with DOC, and we have been waiting since last September for them to give us the okay to do that work. So just so you know.
I think we're all being fine there.
Yeah, I know, it's frustrating, and we've got contractors that are ready to do the work. We did get a little bit of traction in that they asked us to put a plan together, and so Murray Gordon came and helped me put that together. We literally did it, got it signed off within 24 hours and sent it back to DOC, and we haven't heard a word. We haven't heard a word. Yeah.
We'll keep chasing.
Yeah.
So what action do you want over that?
Well, I'm just really, I don't know. I think David's following it up for me actually.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess I'm just telling you why it's still sitting there. It's because we can't get the approval from DOC to do it.
Can I just, you know, you've got your community garden here. Can they maybe propagate stuff so that there's always an oncoming stream? I mean, we've got we've got people in the valley with incredibly green fingers, you've got really good space there. And what I've been right in saying that it could be co-op trees and got plants in the food.
Okay.
I've just given the community garden a whole lot of seeds, tree seeds to plant, two varieties. You may know the Pinus culderai, which is the big cone pine.
Oh, yeah.
But they're going to take a while to grow and they'll be sold from the garden. And also the eating chestnut, which is
Eating chestnut.
it's a chestnut with not a conker, but you can't pick it up because it's got bristles on it, and inside, you know, don't you? And yeah, you need gloves to get the seed out of it. So they'll be available in due course.
Thank you, Russell. So I'll move that the government's report be accepted. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no.
Right.
Hmm?
A seconder, thank you.
Seconder? Yeah.
I'll second
Carried. Anyway, was. The date of the next meeting, October the 19th. And I can declare that meeting is closed. Thank you for your contributions.
So we're going to meet at 7:30 to invite the public.
Thanks, Doug. So now we've got
Finish off that grants workshop, which will take about, we'll just do 5 minutes to stand, sorry.
and sex is only going to take 5 minutes anyway.
Well, public.
Yes. You want a break? Take 5 minutes.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're gonna go. Have you been?
Ruby, this is normal.
Oh, yeah.
So Ruby is part of the meeting. You are going to leave right now.
Yes, so we'll do.
Oh, okay, that's Chris.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
Taking the umbrella yet.
I stand on this mic. Russell's not just like.
Yeah.
I don't. Once the Texas sticks
That's
down.
why, don't let you.
We are a freedom lot.
Well, thanks for having me. Right, see ya.
Yes.
Yes, we probably don't even need the CVs here.
No.
But, that's all right.
So now we.
So
Yeah.
we're just going to finish that grants workshop that we were on. So we discussed the pots, we discussed the 3-year funding. Now the last question is around the chairman's fund. Chairpersons, sorry.
I'm a person, not a man.
Very poor of me. Rebecca.
So the idea around the chairperson's fund is not to increase the pot, but it's to ring fence some of it to give greater flexibility for small applications. So the example that I use is Salvation Army came to the Vincent Community Board for